Get some reaction to the latest controversy out of the White House. Joining us now, former prosecutor David Bruno and Republican strategist Christopher Nyweim. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good to be with you. Good morning.
Christopher, let's start with you. According to the New York Times, Comey's memo shows that the president said, quote, "I hope you can let this go." Do you think this is an obstruction of justice? Do you believe it all?
So I don't know. I mean, we're getting excited about a party, and this is the invitation to a party, and we haven't even seen the invitation. I do think that, Chairman Chaffetz said, let's see the memo, and then let's hear from the man. Why don't we just skip and hear from the man? I think the only person that knows that this is true is the president and former Director Comey.
David, do you expect to hear from Chaffetz, and how do you prove exactly obstruction of justice?
Well, obstruction is found in 18 U.S.C. 1512. And what it says is it needs to be corrupt. And that's wrongdoing, okay? And what everyone's missing right here is, first of all, Director Comey's memo is not a transcription. It's not verbatim. And it's going to be a summary, all right? And also, in the New York Times report itself, the writer, Schmidt, never even looked at the memo. He was just getting information from the source. So this is hearsay after hearsay after hearsay, and there are tons of layers here. And when you're talking about obstruction of justice, words matter. I mean, you're like splitting an atom here when you're trying to prove obstruction of justice. And if nobody has the exact wording as to what he actually said, it's going to be problematic.
Chris, talk about the politics of it all. Your thoughts on what comes next. Obviously, we've had an agenda that we've been trying to focus on, but it's been one event after another, and now this.
Well, I think that David said it best too. I mean, we really need to get to the substance on this and figure out if it's real. And I will say this: I was wrong last week because the president, I thought that there was sort of it was just time to move on, and he was looking to make the next step. But when he called James Comey a showboat, that's like rock and roll guitarist Keith Richards calling someone else a rock star. I mean, I really think that the agenda is getting pushed off. Hearings in Congress have been pushed off. Veterans Committee hearings. We've really got to figure out a way forward here that can be substantive. And also, the president does speak in jest. It will be very different if the president made a sort of offhanded joke that Comey could admit to versus actually dissuading an FBI investigation. So like David said, it is hearsay, but also context is king in this kind of a case. Yeah,
and speaking of the way forward, David, let me ask you, the White House obviously denying the New York Times report and the request that Donald Trump allegedly made to end the Michael Flynn investigation, but how do they handle this going forward?
Well, someone's going to subpoena Director Comey, former Director Comey, and he's going to have to testify about this. And he doesn't want a private setting. In fact, that was reported the reason why he rejected or declined the last invitation. So we're going to hear from him, and words matter, like we're all saying this morning, because, yes, the president does like to talk in jest, and it's going to be important as to what Director Comey says.
Talk about the Republicans and Democrats and the divide now, Chris, the politics in Washington, and what comes next right now, immediately in the timeline.
Well, I think it's turned into a sort of back and forth that, politicians grapple to. I think as Americans and as analysts, we'd like to move forward from it. But I will say this, I was very critical of Hillary Clinton and her sort of cavalier attitude towards national security. The president needs to lock it up a little bit. These sort of conversations, he has advisors. Presidents have experts at their disposal for a reason. And if you're giving information that's related to sensitive operations, this sort of back and forth with the New York Times is not going to be enough to add to that. So the political environment, we're going to see the subpoena, as David mentioned. The committees are going to look into this, and it's going to continue to unfold. So,
Chris, would you say that the president is very much learning how to be president in office and that words do matter?
Absolutely, and I feel like, hearing about shakeups in staff, I mean, I look at the president, I think that they've got to get on the same page of music. I mean, some days I think they're starting happy hour a little bit early at the White House.
Does he need a new communications team?
I don't know. I do think that if they can't get this particular incident under control, they may need to look at changes.
What do you think, David, about tapes? I mean, we're hearing about tapes.
Sure.
What do you think about that? I mean, where does that fall into the legality of all this?
Yeah, well, tapes would be critical you know, because what this is turning out to be is a dispute between what the words were used. And certainly tapes will be the objective evidence. It'll be very different than these memos or these 302 reports. And one thing I'd like to add about these memos, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and the feds, the FBI, is notorious for these reports. And when a lot of the state agencies are using recording devices to record things and statements and interrogations and confessions and things like that, the feds don't. And they use these reports, they're summaries, they're not verbatims, and they can be attacked as to what are in them.
Speaking of, Jason Chaffetz says he's ready to subpoena for that Comey memo. Will the FBI hand it over?
Yeah, I mean, yes. If there's going to be a lawful subpoena that's issued, certainly they're going to have to comply. And the same thing goes for the White House if there's going to be a subpoena for these recordings. So a lot's going to depend on memos, recordings, whether or not they're there, and what was actually said in that room.
Wow. David, Bruno, Chris Nywame, thank you both for joining us this morning.
Good to be with you.
Thanks, guys. And let's get into the latest controversies out of the White House. Joining us now, former prosecutor David Bruno and GOP strategist Ford O'Connell. Good to see both of you.
Good to be here.
Ford, you know, Jim Comey, he had no problems interjecting himself very publicly at the height of the election and the campaigns to say he thought something was wrong. So if he thought Trump had attempted to obstruct justice, don't you think he would have come out publicly earlier and said something about it?
Well, it would exactly make sense. Look, he has a history of doing that, not only with the Clinton email investigation, but also actually when he was Deputy Attorney General under George W. Bush and it came to reauthorizing the Terrorist Surveillance Act. So this does not fit with Comey's sort of MO. I will say this, though, that the Democrats think they've struck gold here. There's a lot we don't know, but as of right now, it's really nothing more than a he said affair that hardly rises to the level of obstruction of justice.
Well, he said it's been the entire campaign and the entire presidency, and we need to know more as well. And David, the acting FBI director, Andrew McCabe, testified that he thought there was no effort to obstruct justice. So why wouldn't have Comey come and said something to him? Did he think this was an obstruction of justice in the investigation? Yeah,
good point, Nicole. Acting Director McCabe actually answered the question directly, and he said there was no effort to impede this investigation up to that point. And yes, one would expect for someone to come out timely if someone believes they're being pressured, and that didn't happen. Also a good point. And like I said at the top of the hour, words matter. And as people listen to coverage today, be very critical of the words that you hear, because you'll hear words like shut down, and he told them to end it. But that's not the case. In fact, the direct quote in the Times article is, quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. And then he is a good guy. I hope you can let it go." And these other words are being used. They're not accurate. In fact, this memo is a summary as it is, as I said before. But the words are critical.
Speaking, Ford, of the Democratic response and reaction to all of this, I know you said it's like a he said kind of deal here, but also they're trying to portray this as a conspiracy theory, as worse than Watergate. What's your take?
Oh, they've been playing the Watergate thing since Trump was inaugurated as president. I mean, if he has 2 scoops of ice cream, they scream constitutional crisis. This is what the Dems do. They want to shut down Donald Trump at every turn. My only advice to Donald Trump is stop giving him the ammo to do it. And as an attorney, I have to say, one other thing in here is exactly what was pointed out, is he said, I hope this goes away. That is not, I ordered you to make this go away. And that is a big difference between a command and actually just a basic term. So, look, Donald Trump can get out of this. And let me say this, if there's actually tapes of this, that might actually be beneficial to Donald Trump. So, again, we've got a long way to go and a short time to get there to make sure we get this agenda through.
I was asking about those tapes. You make a great point. And if this was his quote, the leave it alone or let it go being his exact words, is that anything that can have legal ramifications?
If we can, well, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need more. It needs to be in context as to what comes before, what comes after, how he explains it. And what we're getting is Director Comey's impression of what he heard and what he thought it meant. So yes, the Trump version and what he actually meant is going to be important for that legal analysis.
Well, one more thing. If we go on how this is actually reported as a Comey memo, and this is contemporaneous notes, that also has to be authenticated. And remember back in Watergate, a lot of people were creating self-serving memos after the fact. Maybe this is a guy who wanted a self-serving memo is an ace in the hole to possibly keep his job. Who knows? So I really am very, very skeptical of the entire Comey memo.
Ford, a memo, by the way, that was reportedly read to a New York Times reporter, hence the New York Times was able to break this story. I mean, we haven't seen the memo.
That's absolutely right. And of course, as you know, the New York Times is a bastion of conservative thinking and absolute love here and always likes Donald Trump. So, look, I think that this is something for the media to continue to dance around. But as of right now, we have absolutely nothing but hearsay.
Let me ask both of you quick responses. Ford, David, is this a crisis or not really? Ford first, quickly.
I think this is a messaging crisis, not an actual crisis.
I think it's in a larger crisis. I mean, because we still have the Russian interference investigation, we still have the firing itself, and now we have these statements. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think this isn't going away soon.
And let's talk about the timing of all of this, too, David, because Congress is just coming back from an 11-day recess. They have another one coming up for Memorial Day.
They're going to be very busy. And like you guys said, they're trying to push some agendas, and unfortunately, this is very distracting.
Yeah.
Ford, what's the next step in Washington? What should the Republicans do next?
And the Republicans should get their facts straight. But really, I think the biggest problem here and what is killing the Trump administration are the leaks. He's got to find a way to flush the pipes and stop whoever it is that is leaking on his White House, because it is absolutely not only detrimental to his agenda, but detrimental to the American people.
And that's a good point. Sometimes it's the leaks that are really more crucial than
And the leaks are actually criminal.
Yeah.
That's the ironic thing here. That's the only crime we have thus far.
We will leave it there. David Ford, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks.